Hi everyone, this is Christy from Optimal Wellness, Yoga and More. I thought I would share a little bit of one of my rituals and things I do just for personal pleasure today, and that is journaling and playing with fountain pens and ink. So this is a quick rundown of what is routinely active at this time. So this little is just the A6 Hobonichi Techo, and this became my tarot journal. You'd see I print off pictures on my little Canon Ivy, and I record my drawings, my tarot card drawings. Mostly this is from Dawn Michelle's formerly known as Boho Tarot, from her Weavers membership stuff, and then I try to do a monthly and a weekly just like energy reading, and so those often end up in here. You can see I'm not like super precious about making sure I use up all the pages, but also if I feel I have a lot to journal on a given reading, I don't hesitate to just continue on the page following, because sometimes you've got a lot to say, or it takes a while of writing to really get to the point. So that's my tarot journal. Then this is a half-year common planner from Sterling Ink in the B6. I got this sticker at a little shop in Old Town Alexandria called Penny Press, I think is the name of it, something like that. It's right on King Street. And I just tucked it in my little vinyl cover here, and this started in July, so I started using it in July, and I subscribed to Sterling Ink's sticker club, and I'm really enjoying it because it's cohesive across the months, but yet there's a difference in what colors play as the accent. So it allows me to switch up my colors. You can see what I used in July and what I'm using here in August. But my process is, so once we get towards the end of July, I start prepping my pens for the following month, and then whatever pens I used primarily in my planner, I tend to use 3 colors, one for work, one for personal, and one for like accents and extra notes, special occasions, headings, things like that. And then just like your everyday notes, I always have a gray ink in a pen, so it kind of looks like pencil notes, so it doesn't like jump out at you, but it's there if you need to look at that. So those pens, those colors I carry over into the next month, because any stickers I have left from working in my planner, I then put down onto Rhodia Notepad to create stationery for my pen pals. So then I just write the pens dry, and they coordinate with the homemade stationery. Here we've got the weeklies. I don't think there's anything terribly earth-shattering in here, but what I wasn't so happy with in July was that I chose 2 different greens, and I thought they would be significantly different enough, and they are very different in darkness. But it just doesn't pop quite how I'd like. So now I've learned I prefer to have a little higher contrast between the work and personal stuff. So then in July, that was the last full week in July, and then we transitioned into August here. And I like to keep track of the moon phases, so I started adding that. I'm using a very dark brown for work stuff, a lighter color for personal stuff, and a slightly brighter color for special accents. And then I did a really poor job this week. We went to the fountain pen show at the DC Fountain Pen Super Show last Saturday, and I kind of overdid it as far as pain levels and everything. And so this week has been a bear. Lots of pain to try to get back under control. Plus, still trying to find the new routine with a young, energetic dog in the household, because we just added a new rescue guy named Fitz. And so my usual schedule is a little different. And then in the back, if you aren't familiar with the Sterling Ink Common Planner, the back has just a bunch of numbered empty pages. So unlike the Hobonichi Cousin, it's not pre-dated for 1 page per date, which I like, because then I can just kind of move through. I tipped in the calendar vellum from the Sterling Ink mailing. I haven't done the August yet. And you can see I played around with how I wanted to do the layouts. First I was doing 2 columns and just doing a running one and adding the date, pretty much in line with Ryder Carroll's system. Kind of decided that wasn't the best. Decided I wanted to try, if I remember right, I think this is called the Alexander method, where you have your tasks and you write down the days that you completed those tasks or worked on them. If I just worked on them, it's a single slash. And then when I finish, I put a full X on whatever day that is. So I started doing that. I made a note section. I made a next week section. Didn't use those a lot. I'm not super busy, because a lot of my focus is just on pain management and the mental health stuff that goes along with that, and then teaching my, right now, just group yoga therapy. So then I tried a page a day, where I had my priorities, I had the other things that I'd like to work on, I have gratitude at the end. Also, what I was looking forward to was how I started the day this particular week in July. And I did a little bit better using this this weekly page, in part because I was taking a trip to Raleigh, and so I put my packing list on here. Didn't really have anything to note because I was on vacation. And I didn't do a lot of journaling while on vacation. Came back again, playing with that weekly kind of cover page. I don't know, I may end up needing to dump that, we'll see. I mentioned that I do weekly energy readings, and this I blocked out to put a picture of the cards I drew and to write a little bit. I did do that practice, but I haven't put it in here. I can always go and back journal that little bit. And then I tried doing like a much more rigid layout this last full week in July. I kind of liked it, especially in the beginning of the week, and that's one thing I find for myself. I'm always like gung-ho, and I get going and I do things in the beginning of the week only to kind of peter out at the end of the week. So here you can see we get to Thursday and I didn't really use it. But what I do like to try to make sure I do is track the media that I'm consuming, in part just for, I think it'd be fun to look back and be like, oh yeah, that was the year I was obsessed with Disney Dreamlight Valley and Wildflowers on my Nintendo Switch. Or, oh, that was the first time we watched, this British show or whatever. Plus, by noting down which streaming service we watched the things off of, we can identify what services we're not currently using and can go shut those off until, there's new episodes of the series we watch on there, and flap back and forth, turning things on and off as needed, and that works pretty well for us. Saturday the 19th was when we brought home our new addition. He was called Theo by the rescue, and we named him Fitzwilliam. He's our Mr. Darcy. So our previous 2 rescues were named after Jane Austen characters as well. But you'll see I didn't do a whole lot. I did decide to go a little less rigid in my layout, but still do a page a day, which actually freed me up to do a little bit of just free journaling. I always made sure I had room for gratitude at the end of the day. I liked that. And then I just had however much room I needed for noting those other things. And this worked a little bit better because I could just go with the flow, but you'll see that I only made it so far. And then I petered out again. This was the pen show day. I'll go back and fill in some of the stuff I learned there at the pen show. And then I did nothing this week. You can see I put that page in and I did nothing, but you know what? I'm gonna embrace that because that's part of being a spoonie, right? You sometimes start things out with the best of intentions and it just doesn't always work. So I did no journaling this week, and that's okay. And maybe I'll do a plan with me to set up next week a little later. But so that's kind of my system and what informs my pen rotation. So I thought that might be interesting. We'll look at the currently inked Kaweco Sport in the Toyoma, I can't remember, teal. And I have a fine steel nib. And the ink is Pilot Eero Shizuku Chikorin. And I had this in a relatively new to me Narwhal pen, this ink and that combo of their fine nib and this very lubricated Shizuku made my writing look like marker, and it didn't really fit within the grid of my planner. So this is what I ended up using. This is one that gets fairly regular rotation, at least during the warm months of the year. It says new growth to me, so especially spring. Sometimes I feel like it's too light for reading long form writing, but it really kind of depends what pen I put it in. So this was one of the colors. This was my personal stuff in July. Then the other green I had going was this Brass Fude Exvini, or I've seen it called a D-like, and I think that's what the nib says, if I remember correctly. And I got a bent Fude nib in it, but it's barely Fude. But I picked this up because I do like heavier pens, but I wanted to be certain that I would be okay with Kaweco Lilliput, because I have been in love with the Fire Blue Lilliput since it first came out. And so I thought I would make sure that that heft is okay for me. In general, I kind of like heftier pens. So my only disappointment was that the Fude nib is not quite what I expected. So D-like brass Lilliput knockoff. With a Fude nib. But this one, I don't know if on video you can really see it. Maybe I'll pop in a photo of it, but it's barely bent. So it's almost as though the tipping material was taken to the top of the nib instead of to the bottom of the nib. And the ink I have in here is Roher and Cleaner, and excuse me, despite both my maiden and married last name being German, my German is awful or basically non-existent. It's the Alt Goldgrün. I like the coolness and the dark of this green. So with Fude nibs, the higher up you take the pen, the skinnier the line, and then the more horizontal you take the pen, the wider the line. And you're gonna see the most variation in the sideways. So this is kind of my standard angle most of the time. This is high angle, look at how skinny that is. And then, so there, you see there is variation, but it's a lot less than what I had experienced using the Hokoro dip Fude to test my nibs. I learned about this from Simone's channel, I think, and became obsessed, and we ordered it from Yoseka in New York, and you can see the bend on this is much more substantial. Whenever I share my ink journal with you, you can see the variation I can get with that one. So this was what all of my work things were noted down in. Then we have a purple Twisby Eco. I like these because the pen stays wet for months, even if you don't use it. And this is just, I always have this one inked up with this. I believe this is the Fine, if I remember correctly. Of course, it's steel. Oops, can't spell. It's a steel nib because this is, you know, roughly $30 pen or so, depending on where you get it. And the ink is the Lamy 2016 special edition, dark lilac. And because I am a purple person, I always have this one ready to go. Plus, I find a lot of times my my Ecos to run a bit dry, and I haven't really opened this one up to gush too much. So this particular nib, feed, and ink combo seems to work okay on your standard office paper when that is required. The accent color that I used in July has already been flushed out because it was super dry and wasn't super pleasant to work with. So I just went ahead and emptied it. And then my big takeaway from the DC Pen Show is this 6-pen Galen leather case. I may need to write to them though, because the leather on this left side didn't get caught very well, and I'm having trouble with the zipper sometimes catching on these flaps. So my primary pens for in my journal right now are these four. And again, these are oddly, like, all of my higher quality pens are not inked at the moment. It just somehow worked out that way this month, given the colors I wanted to use and everything. So this is Jinhao 86 a little sad about the screw off cap because it also takes a lot of screws to get it off. So this is Jinhao 86. It's a Pilot 51 knockoff, and I got a set of 3 of these off Amazon strictly because I received a couple Parker 51s from some friends of mine, or my parents really, and both of them have issues and need refurbishing if they're going to be used. So it's a fine steel nib, and it's hooded. So if you're not familiar with fountain pens, hooded, it talks about how the section where you grip the pen, it goes out and over and covers the nib. And I dig the retro look of it. And even though it's not the pens from my parents' friends, it does make me think of them when I use these. And that's something nice. So the ink that's in here, after all that chatting, is Birmingham Pen Company, which is just up the road in Pittsburgh. So I like supporting them because I feel like it's buying local. It's, I think probably within 100 miles. So, you know, at least semi-local. And the ink is burley wood. Now, burley wood does have some green sheen, but it's not a super sheener. So like in this fine nib, it doesn't really show up. And really so far, I've only seen it in my swatch. But I just knew this color was going to be perfect for August's sterling ink because it features some frames in it, and this is like kind of the color of those frames. So I got really excited when my August package arrived and I had this good match. And oftentimes I will carry the alt Goldgren through again and continue that for work, because it's just, to me, that green is kind of a neutral. Maybe chalk that up to my shamanism. Plus the sterling ink stuff is geared towards botanicals and stuff, so there's always like deep greens like that in their kits. So then this is the pen I used for personal stuff, or I am using for personal stuff here in August. It's a Lamy Safari and charcoal with the black nib, and the nib is an extra fine. Apparently I can't talk and write at the same time. So Lamy Safari, extra fine, black nib in the charcoal. And I note down which Lamy it's in because I'm finding that in some cases it must be a difference in the feed mechanism, how wet the pens are, because the same nib swapped to a different pen doesn't necessarily change things much, which I was kind of surprised by. Now, oranges and golds are also relatively frequent in Sterling Ink's lineup, and I've been having troubles finding a nice orange gold that isn't like super bright. Like, I'm not into the super pure bright inks. So I ordered some samples of oranges and golds from Van Ness in July, and this is California. I don't. It's a new to me brand. That may not be quite right. It'll get you there though. And I have to look at my notes here to remind myself. Califolio Inti. Inti is the color, and I have to say this is a fantastic match. I'm really liking this one. Probably helps that it's an extra fine. It's kind of concentrating the color down a little bit. And this was just a sample of 4 milliliters, and I just really, this is to me like a really awesome fall color, and I guess it's appropriate since, you know, August 1st was Lammas or Lunasa, which is the first harvest in the Wheel of the Year, and that corresponds to things like oats and wheat and blueberries, and so these all this makes me think of, you know, the wheat and the oat fields back home in Minnesota when they were getting ready to be harvested. So I like that. It kind of takes me back home in my mind, at least, even if it's been several years now, thanks to COVID, since I was last home. Then this might give you a bit of a hint of what is in this one. This is the accent color. Again, it's another Lamy Safari. It's the red with a medium steel nib, and often I find mediums to be too thick, and often I feel like my handwriting with medium nibs looks like it's been written in magic marker, which I don't really care for. It's not my aesthetic, although I rarely feel that way when I see other people write with medium and even broad nibs. So I don't know, maybe it's some sort of weird handwriting dysphoria. I'm not sure. But the ink in here is Diamine Brandy Dazzle, and I like putting the shimmers in the Lammies because I can disassemble them and generally get them very well cleaned out. So the dazzle means there's shimmer in there. It's subtle unless it catches the light just right. But I'm sure most of you have seen it before. I don't know if we can catch the shimmer on the video there. Maybe not. So that is my accent color. So special events and headings and such. And then for just the Monday everyday note, so often this would be like tracking my media consumption. I have another TWSBI in clear, and I believe this one is a fine. Of course, steel nib again, and it's again an Iroshizuku. I like having a few Iroshizuku around because their lubrication can be really nice in pens that are a little dry, especially since I go more towards the fine and the extra fine nibs. That only enhances a dry ink with those little nibs. So I just got the Kirasami, so this is the first that I've inked up. I'm liking it. I'd had the other gray, the Foyu Soigun, in my Pilot Falcon for several months as my my note taking, but I decided to switch things up a little bit. You can see this particular nib's a little dry on that upstroke. I could stand to maybe tune this nib a little bit. It does give some feedback, and I really like the buttery smooth writing experience. So that is mostly my currently inked. Those of you that were paying close attention, remember that I had a couple pens still in my pen case. So these are kind of just because. Not even, I don't know, I'm not sure I remember what is in this one. Oh, and it looks like it's seeped out. Oh, I bet it's, I think it's probably Noodler's habanero, maybe. Oh no, this, I moved the accent ink from July over to this pen because I was having trouble with it in my Decimo. So I moved it here to this, this Lamy, oops, not Safari, it's an All-Star. Got the fine nib in here. Of course, a cartridge converter, as you saw when I opened it up. And this is it's one of the J. Herbin, the Coral de Tropiques, I think. I only just started in late June to catalog my inks and my pens. So we got J. Herbin, Coral de Tropiques. Again, I don't speak French either, so pardon my mispronunciations. And I had added just a little bit of glycerin to it to lubricate it, and I still didn't really care for it in the Decimo. So I do have Van Ness pens White Lightning now, since I ordered samples from them, but that was before I was filling this stuff up. So this one has a dry upstroke too. Otherwise the nib is quite smooth. So yeah, that's a leftover from July. And then just because this is a Navaler Classic Plus, it's a vacuum filler, a modern day vacuum filler. I have a vintage vacuum filler too, but it's not inked up at the moment. I had problems where the plunger diaphragm came off, but they kindly just sent me a replacement midsection, a replacement barrel with a new diaphragm and everything in place, and they were super quick about it. So overall, quite happy. I know things happen sometimes, and oh, I just spelled that wrong. I always have to think so hard. Okay, there, I think I got it right. Navalar Classic Plus in a fine. And I have been getting some hard starts. That first one, I'd say, is because I haven't written with it all week. But there I had one again, rose gold plated. fine steel nib. So this is an upgrade from the other pens that I have currently inked. This one is, I think, MSRP is $60. And we first discovered these guys at the Baltimore Pen Show in March, but we just looked. We actually did not buy anything at that show because we were really good. But we grabbed their card, or actually I think we had to take a picture of their card on one of the guys' iPhones because they'd run out of cards. We went on Sunday when it wasn't going to be as busy. And we looked them up, and I don't know, mid-June? I don't know, sometime in June, I think, Amelia placed an order, and I got this one, and she got one of the Schuylkill ones. I was finding I had the Chicorin in this, and the flow was like too much. And also I think I tend to feel like my handwriting looks like, tends to look like Magic Marker, the lighter colored the ink is. So my color choice may help here as well. I mean, I love diamine inks, but they're not quite the lubricated, super flowing that I've found Iroshizuku to be for me. And this is the Prussian blue color. And I like this one. It's like a cool gray, or a blue gray sort of color. So again, it can really be kind of a neutral. The nib writes very buttery smooth. I like that. But I may take this nib and get it worked on by a nib meister to maybe make it slightly finer, or maybe I'll get an italic cursive. I don't have one of those yet. So yeah, but this does feel better. I need to do some more long form writing with this pen and ink combo to figure out what I think of it. And sorry when I take things out of frame, I'm getting used to having this flat lay, and it's kind of awkwardly towards the back of my desk space, so I keep like pulling things out of the frame, but you know, your first video is your first video, right? So those are the last two. So that's what I have inked up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's generally about as many as I really want inked up at a time, and actually I would prefer it to be 6 or maybe 7. The 3 colors from the previous month, the 3 colors from the current month, and the gray would be my optimum. You can see these frames are where I liked, and the inner sunflower is where I really liked the California Inta, but also the Diamond Brandy Dazzle kind of fits right in with there, and the Burley Wood goes quite well with the frames, and but you can also see where the Alt Goldgrün pretty much would always go, because the leaves in every month is about the same. So maybe a little later I will video looking through my ink journal and picking colors for the September. I haven't opened it yet, so I can maybe do an unboxing and look at what I may have to coordinate with it, and if I need to seek out some new samples before September hits. So there we go, my very first planner / fountain pen video. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember that doing things just simply for the pleasure is an important part of each and every day. Until I see you again, be safe and be well. Aho.